Hey everyone, my name is Karen Thompson, and I call myself the Blerdy Beauty. Black nerd is blurred, and I am very inquisitive about health. I'm really interested, and I consume a lot of content from amazing, brilliant doctors about how the body is amazing and can heal. And one of my goals while I pursue my nutrition and exercise plan, on my top 3 list is reducing and getting rid of my fibroids that have been plaguing me for years. So I've seen so many videos suggesting so many methods, and I have to wonder, do they help? Do they harm? What are old wives' tale versus what's good science? Is it plant-based? Is it turmeric? Is it castor oil packs and green tea? And in my brain, I'm also an attorney by trade. Don't hold it against me. I'm a recovering attorney, but I know that when we go to medical trials, we get the most brilliant, wonderful doctors we can get who can speak to the issue. And I'm so blessed to have come across and be able to bother this wonderful, brilliant attorney I just met named Dr. Akita Evans. And she is an integrative and functional medicine doctor, and she's hacked herself, biohacked herself. And I'm so excited that she is allowing me to sit with her today and bug her further on fibroids, since this is Fibroid Month, July. So I'm so excited to introduce her to you if you don't already know her. And I would love her to explain her background. Hey, Dr. Akita.
Hello, thank you. I'm excited for this conversation too. It's so funny as you were naming the things, the turmeric, the green tea, I'm like thinking, yep, I've tried it all. I've tried it all,
Wow.
So as I was on my health journey, and I'm still on the journey, but as you said, I have kind of figured out some things that work for me. When I think about fibroids, I think that they are often a reflection of an environmental issue within the body. And so we do find that some people benefit from things others don't, but I think having the information is best because people can end up doing what is best for them. We learned about uterine fibroids in medical school, but when I had to learn about them for myself, it changed. I had to go to the primary research. We're still learning about a lot about it, but I had enough information to get started on what was going to help me. Uterine fibroids are more common in African-American women. Like the majority of African-American women have fibroids when only maybe 20% of white women have fibroids.
I wonder, is that related to how melanin might affect our absorption of that?
Yeah, that's a good point. It's related to that. In addition, it's also related to just genetic predisposition. But to the point you made, people of color, women of color have more melanin in the skin. So it is harder for our skin to make vitamin D from the sun. And there are studies that show all over the world, but then also in the US, that women who are Black tend to have lower vitamin D, yes, and have a higher incidence and prevalence of fibroids. There are some studies that show when the vitamin D is corrected through supplementation, women need less interventions for their fibroids. So vitamin D is definitely playing a role in the increased risk of fibroids in Black women.
Okay, that's good to know.
Yes. So that was one of the first things that I had checked when I was on my journey. I needed to know what my vitamin D level was. I also had to make sure that what I was taking was effective. Was my vitamin D level was it in normal range? Was it therapeutic? Was it suboptimal? And so really, I've been probably tracking my vitamin D for over 15 years at this point.
And it's important that we track that too, right? Because we can get too much vitamin D too as well, right? So I'm fascinated by all this talk of hormones, because I used to hear it was calories in, calories out. And today it seems like people are saying it's more hormonally driven. And I kind of think some of the hormones are estrogen, progesterone. But what is a hormone? I hear vitamin D is a hormone. And does food affect it, like sugar?
Yeah, that's a great question. So hormones are chemicals that just communicate within the body. So yes, vitamin D is a hormone. We call it a vitamin, but it's big part of communication. It affects many health systems because it's carrying messages, is allowing certain processes to happen to optimize our health, from everything from immune function to bone health to cardiovascular health. So hormones are complicated, they all work together. And they're really, I can't think of any instance in the human body in which something is just working in its own silo. So when we think about fibroids and uterine health, there is the influence of vitamin D, yes, and also the influence of the hormone insulin and how that affects the production of estrogens. Insulin itself acts on ovaries. And then the ovaries produce the hormones that affect the fibroids in the uterus.
So if you have a lot of sugar,
Yes.
and that drives up the insulin, and then that keeps the fibroids growing.
It can. So with a lot of sugar, someone has suboptimal metabolic health and their body can't handle a lot of sugar. It can't handle whether the sugar is in the form of a cake or excessive rice intake, bread. If their body cannot handle the sugar, their insulin goes up. So what I'm describing is insulin resistance. When a person's body is not responding, and by body, I mean everything from the brain to the uterus to eyes, when the person's body is not responding appropriately, in which we were designed to do to the hormone insulin, and is not bringing the sugar from the bloodstream into the cells to actually provide energy, the body compensates by making more insulin. Okay. So the pancreas just secretes more insulin, trying to make the body more responsive. So that's what insulin resistance is. Blood sugar goes up, insulin goes up. Blood sugar goes up, insulin goes up. As that insulin goes up, it is acting on the ovaries.
Gotcha. Because it's trying to shunt that sugar anywhere
it
can.
Everything is related. Everything is tied in. And so as it's acting on the ovaries are acting by making the hormones they do. And that's contributing to the growth of fibroids. And so that's why we see a lot of correlation between poor metabolic health and the formation of fibroids, poor metabolic health and high blood pressure. All of the systems are influenced by the same hormones in different ways, and disease can manifest in different ways. So even when I was going through my journey, I didn't have awareness of all this at the time, but as I look back, I had the awareness that, oh, that insulin resistance was also affecting my fertility, also affecting, my uterus in this way, affecting my ovaries in this way. And that's why I'm grateful for the training of functional medicine, because I've been trained to look for the root cause. You address the root cause, and then hopefully everything, functions optimally. That's the goal.
Right.
Yeah.
So what are some steps we can take to start addressing insulin resistance? How should we go about sort of methodically seeing what we can do to reduce that and maybe help shrink or reduce fibroids?
Yeah, a lot of progress can be made just through the awareness of the potential benefit or harm of the foods we choose. I over the past few decades, we've been taught to look for low fat in packaging, when it turns out it's probably the carbohydrate, not probably, was a carbohydrate contributing to, diabetes, high blood pressure, unhealthy weights. And so knowing how you respond to food, or how an individual responds to food, how that may affect their blood sugar, and in turn their blood pressure, their uterus, their brain. So nutrition, physical activity. I talk a lot about our strength training. So building muscle, the more muscle we build, the more insulin sensitive we are, the better we're able to process the blood sugars as we eat.
Because I read that for years, I never put together, I was on some commercial weight loss programs, and I never realized that they allowed me certain fruits, but they were just, they would tend to make me sleepy, but I never thought of that. Grapes and pineapples, and they were higher sugar. So that's good to know. And I'm really excited because I'm reading all about myokines in
Mm,
terms of exercising. So I love when doctors like you talk about muscle contractions creating these beneficial um, myokines. Because I read when COVID started, I read about the cytokine storm, but I heard that cytokines are just the inflammatory version of the myokines, and that when we work out, that helps create better hormonal health for us as well.
You're bringing up a good point. I'm reminded of something because I'll often tell patients, we have medicines that work, right? But if we're going to choose lifestyle, that's the medicine. And so routine physical activity, I'll often see, maybe 3 months of something, 3 weeks of something, because we're all trying to build new habits and better habits. But physical activity is a good medicine. I mean, it's a lifestyle change, but it's medicinal. It is therapeutic, and it really helps improve insulin sensitivity because we are using the food that we're eating for energy as we exercise, and then it also improves our sensitivity to the hormone of insulin.
I heard someone say, motion is lotion for your joints, and
Yes.
movement is medicine.
Yes. I really haven't found a substitute yet, so I'm glad I like exercising because there's nothing like it. Yeah, exercise, movement, physical activity.
So when you were on your journey, because I was excited to hear that you actually were able to shrink yours to get those two beautiful babies back there in that picture,
Right.
what were some of the most eye-opening things that you came across that could have been contributing to it, that empowered you to turn around and attack and help in that fight against the growth and the development of those fibroids?
Yeah, that's a good question. All these things are coming to mind. At that particular point in my career, I was just out of residency. Yes, newly married, wondering why I wasn't conceiving, thought I was healthy. And going back to the idea that the presence of fibroids are a reflection that probably the environment in my body was not the healthiest because it was contributing to the growth. I think two things that really stood out were the effect of internal stress had, and also the effect of chemicals that I was being exposed to, just toxins in my everyday environment. So in regard to the stress, new career, new city, new, and working, and probably poor sleep and all the things. And so I can imagine my cortisol level was probably high.
And that's another hormone, right?
Another hormone, exactly. And so that was contributing to the presence of the fibroids. We have evidence of that. And so my mother-in-law actually taught me like this deep breathing technique that I would use at work to calm myself down. And then other things I had to put into place, look at my coping mechanisms, exercise. I was not exercising then, but all of those things to bring down my stress level and likely lower my cortisol level, and then that improved the environment in my body. So I think about the stress. We often don't attribute enough to it, but stress just affects everything. And then the other thing that I learned about at that time, you know how you'll look at one video, then you get to one blog and all of this. That's when I learned about endocrine disrupting chemicals. And these are things that are found in our environments. They're found in the plastics. You remember maybe 10 plus years ago, everything was BPA free all of a sudden. So that's an example of a very common one. These are chemicals that are found in the way we store food. They're found in cosmetics. They're found in insecticides. They're just found in things, and they act like hormones in our body. They're very similar to our natural hormones. And so our body reacts to them in a way we react to estrogen. And so I could only imagine that these things that were in their environment were having an effect on me. So I would use resources like, it's called the Environmental Working Group, to look for cleaning products that were cleaner, look for cosmetics that were cleaner, even like menstrual supplies, like everything, you have to think about everything. And then being a Black woman, I had a perm as an adolescent, for a few years I did, but like, you know, people who, even hair products I use now, I'm always like, what are the ingredients? We commonly see paraben-free, things like that. And that is kind of bringing attention to the fact that we have the evidence that these chemicals act negatively in our bodies and they contribute to things like fibroids. And so I really had to clean up the way I was living. Not perfect, was never perfect, but trying to be consistent in the decisions I was making. Choosing organic foods when possible, looking at like the dirty produce. If everything couldn't be organic, I wanted some things to be organic. And I also want to talk about something else that I found very interesting, because I was raised on the water. We ate fish almost every day. Like, yeah, we ate fish a lot, seafood. And there was a study of Black women that live in Detroit. And they were monitored with serial transvaginal ultrasounds. And then they were asked about their dietary habits. Those who ate high levels of seafood or fish had higher chemicals in their body.
Mm.
And that
Yeah.
correlated to fibroids. And so we're often taught, because it's true, like fish is healthy, but we have to make sure we're having good quality, healthy fish.
The right kind that are lower in mercury.
Exactly. And other toxins, because they're just, you know, living in this polluted water.
I remember back in when I had my first myomectomy, well, I only had one myomectomy decades ago. But when I look back and I think about it, I was eating a lot of sushi, and there was a lot of mercury in the type of sushi I was getting, as opposed to getting, you know, the smaller fish that apparently don't have as much mercury.
Yeah. Lower on the food chain, smaller.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, I often say it's not what you eat, it's what you ate.
Mm-hmm.
And so even when I think about these studies that talk about, you know, plant-based, plant-based has very loose definitions. There are some people who, you know, say you can be plant-based and still eat meat, as long as you're like eating a lot of plants and less processed foods. And then there are flexitarians, things like that. So I want to just say plant-based can mean a lot of different things. But when we're thinking about plant-based, I'm like, I wonder if it's because they're taking into the account that maybe the quality of meat isn't good. And it's kind of like when the women were eating the fish and having higher exposure to toxins from less clean sources.
The quality,
Mm-hmm.
like I all these for the last couple of years, I've been careful to sort of splurge a little on grass-fed beef.
Yeah.
And then a friend who's on an allergy, trying to reduce her autoimmune issues, was telling me, not just grass-fed, Karen, grass-fed and grass-finished. And I was like, wow, yet another one.
Yes. You know, so we're bringing, when you said that, it reminded me, there's always something. And I think it's easy to get caught up, because when I was at the beginning of this journey, my goal was I wanted children. And so I was going to do any and everything. And I don't know what made the difference. I just know it all made the difference. And
Yeah.
so I just encourage people to do what you can,
Yeah.
because there's even more I could do now, but my goals are different now. My capacity is different now. And so if people watch this video and they make one change, that's good. Make 5 changes, that's good. But it's just about bringing awareness that there are things in our lifestyle that we can control, that we have evidence and research to support, that may improve uterine health and reduce fibroid burden.
Yeah, even as simple as cutting back on, for me, I found out that I was caffeine sensitive.
Yeah.
And it was sort of until I started looking around and asking questions and watching videos from wonderful doctors like you, I didn't realize I was drinking so much coffee to get energy, but I didn't have energy because I was low on iron from the fibroids. But then once I advocated for myself and realized all these things were feeding each other, because coffee actually depletes iron, so I was putting myself in a worse cycle. And you know, for our audience, I want everybody to be sure that you check every 3 months keep on track, because you can get too much vitamin D and too much iron as well. But I learned to advocate for myself that, we as women, we do so much and we feel guilty if we're not getting stuff accomplished. But if we're not giving our body what it needs, we shouldn't be held to feeling that guilt when we're doing everything we can. So I just want to encourage women to get tested for vitamin D and iron if they do have fibroids, and keep checking that, and realize that for me, caffeine was sapping me of my iron. So that's another issue. So for me, I had to cut out the caffeine. I had to cut out the sugary drinks and the soda, and that helped as well.
Oh, yes. And that helps also improve metabolic health. So
Yes.
it's all related.
Yes.
Thank you for bringing up being your own advocate. As we interact with the healthcare system, as individuals, there's research showing that there can be disparity in care. There can be disparity in things offered. And so we really want women to be equipped with the information that there are options for lifestyle changes, there are options for different treatments. And you really want to advocate for yourself and find a healthcare provider you feel comfortable with asking all the questions. And that was a very good example of that.
So in terms of specifics, because, you always get the eat right and exercise, and it's like, define that better. Like, is there a difference between salad vegetables and other vegetables? Like, I've heard about a lot of things happening with cruciferous vegetables. What's up with that?
Yeah, it's interesting because a lot of the evidence for helping with fibroids is like eat plant-based. And cruciferous vegetables are one of the main reasons for that. With fibroids, they're heavily influenced by estrogen. And cruciferous vegetables help our bodies excrete excess estrogen.
Nice.
So examples of cruciferous vegetables are like broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, like those green, hearty, leafy vegetables, and they help with the estrogen balance in our bodies. Depending on gut health, we may not get rid of all our estrogen, and it recirculates in our system and is reabsorbed. So cruciferous vegetables help with liver health, with a detox, and it can help that balance. And so a recommendation is to definitely include those. Other benefits can come from citrus fruits as far as fibroid health. There was actually a study in which the researchers were looking at diet intake and fibroids, and they found that women who had multiple servings of fruits and vegetables every day had lower fibroid burden. And in fact, the magic number in this study was like at least 4 a day. And so I encourage women to eat their vegetables and fruit. I don't usually say fruits and vegetables anymore, because for metabolic health, we have to be careful with even the natural sugars, but eating their vegetables and their fruit, and really focusing on the fruits rich in antioxidants like berries, the citrus fruits in this instance, and definitely the green leafy cruciferous vegetables.
Gotcha. Because the vitamin C and the vitamin C in the citrus vegetables also helps absorb the vitamins from the cruciferous vegetables.
Exactly. And a powerful antioxidant.
Yeah, that's good for skin too, right? The collagen.
Exactly. Yes.
Nice.
Yes, when I was at the beginning of my fertility journey, I was undergoing a workup and had an ultrasound that showed fibroids. And that was kind of shocking, but kind of not, because they're common, unfortunately. And so the treatment options that were offered to me, I did not feel aligned with at the time. And I went back to the drawing board. I looked at what we knew, I looked at what we had available to us in research. I looked at case studies, and I really tried to tease out what the underlying issue could be. I knew that if my body was growing fibroids, yes, there is the race, ethnicity, there is the genetics, but there was likely something that I could do to positively influence the health of my body. And so that's what led to all the things. And I tried many things. I'm not able to say what worked or what may not have worked as much, but in the end result, I did have follow-up imaging that my fibroid shrunk.
Nice. That's beautiful and encouraging to hear.